Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. This week's questions answered video, why don't you prefer U-notch pistol sights? This question came up on the video that I did on night sights. I mentioned U-notch sights and how I don't really care for U-notch sights in that video, and I did explain it a little bit if you go back and watch it, or if maybe you remember what I'm talking about. But I thought the question was specific enough to explain exactly why I don't prefer U-notch sights. So what we're specifically talking about for handguns is the U-notch sight. Generally speaking, we're talking about a front sight post that's traditional in nature, be it night sight, fiber optic, or all black, traditional right angles. And then the rear is a U, hence the name, or a shallow trough. The idea behind them being that you can acquire your sight alignment and get your sight picture faster versus your traditional iron sights. The biggest problem with U-notches that I see consistently is the fact that they do not allow for the same degree of precision that you're going to get from a traditional sight package, such as your traditional right angle notch and then your traditional front sight post, be they night sights, fiber optics, or all blacks respectively speaking. The reason for that is you can't really fine-tune your sight alignment with a U-notch in the same way that you can with a traditional sight alignment with your traditional sights. Reason being is you're having to rectify a right angle front sight post with a radius rear U-notch. And of course that can be very problematic because there's nowhere to pin, if you will, your alignment. You can't, obviously you can still flush it across the top as you would with your traditional sights, but with the U-notch you have a lot of play in your ability to establish alignment because you have no real clear frame of reference. Now that being said, is the U-notch, our U-notch sights I should say, are U-notch sights effective? Yes, they are effective, relatively speaking to whatever the standards are. If I'm looking for performance at 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 meters, they're going to be relatively the same, on par with their traditional sight picture. But once we get out a little bit past 10, in my experience, they start to fail, and they fail very, very fast. The argument about faster sight picture, sight alignment, I think is really relative to the shooter. I don't think that you can take just anybody or a wide measurement of shooters and say definitively that U-notch sights do allow the shooter to acquire their sights faster. I think that there's just not enough information there on a broad scope to say that that's definitively true. Now you have anecdotal information from this shooter or that shooter to say that, like, yeah, I feel faster on these, or I'm able to perform faster or perform more consistently at a greater rate of speed when it comes to sight picture, sight alignment than I am with traditional sights. But like I said, I don't think that you're going to be able to paint with a very broad brush and say definitively that these sights are going to give you that performance regardless of the shooter that we're talking about. So are U-notch sights bad? I think U-notch sights are advantageous at distances where a traditional idea of sight alignment and sight picture isn't as critical. What I mean is the closer we are to our desired point of impact, the less refined our point of aim needs to be. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use your sights, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't make an effort to refine your sight picture, but something I do in classes all the time is I have people shoot with less than ideal sight alignments to see how small those accuracy differences are going to be from point A and point A impact as distance increases. Now once we get back to increased distances, of course we want to have that precise sight picture, and that's where, or I should say precise sight alignment sight picture, and that's where the U-notches just can't deliver. So as a sighting system, I don't see and this is of course my personal opinion, having used them, I still have them on some of my guns, and seen them in classes all the time. I just don't see the advantage. And again, your opinion may be different. You may love your U-notch fights, and that's fine, but I'm just answering the question why I don't like them and why I wouldn't recommend them. If someone has U-notch sights on their gun and they tend to have accuracy issues at distance, generally what I'm going to look at is the fundamentals. But if they have those sights as well, I also have to address the fact that, hey, those sights cannot give you the same degree of finite precision that you can get aligning right angles as you have to with a U-notch align a right angle and a radius, and that's going to be a problem. So there you have it. I'm not saying take them off your gun. If you like them, keep them. If you're able to shoot out to reasonable distances with your handgun accurately with your U-notch sights, then that's great. But that's just my opinion on the U-notch and why, again, I'm not going to recommend them, and probably going to steer people clear of them when they ask for suggestions on which sights to get if they're having problems or they don't like the sights that they have. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.